Hello one, hello all. Well, let's be honest, this isn't a SpongeBob video, so it's closer to 1. Wanna watch me kill my bounce rate even more? Check it. Recommended viewing before this video are my 2 previous videos about Pikmin. There's a lot we went over in my more general video about Pikmin 2 that I won't be getting into here, but in fact will be assuming you're familiar with. So if you got any problems, odds are I've already resolved or addressed them in that video, so please go take a watch. You're still here? Good for fucking you. You're in for a good fucking time. You know, people have asked me why I've been recently dropping F-bombs and the like towards the beginning of these videos after years of squeaky clean content aside from the off curse censored by a Metal Gear Solid alert sound. Fun story, these are actually less bombs and more tripwire. These are tripwires, whose current untriggered status proves to me that my direct family hasn't watched a single one of my videos for a very long time. The assumption is that if my parents hear me hardcore curse for the first time in their lives in the first minute of a video, which is a generous amount of attention to assume of them, then they'd call me and spring my trap, telling exactly when they'd seen one. It's like reverse parenting. Like, you know when your parents make a deal behind your back and get into cahoots with the teacher to get the deets on if you actually did your assigned homework over the weekend or not, which evidently you told them you had none? Yeah, well that's what's going on here. My favorite thing about my life now is that every story about me doing stupid crap or behaving like a jackass in school isn't actually a story anymore. They're jokes. They're all jokes because each one has a punchline now. That punchline being that I have a bachelor's in engineering. Literally my whole life up until the punchline that is my diploma is a joke, and I love it. For the time being, the tripwire's still strong, untouched, so I've gotta keep fucking swearing and you're just gonna have to fucking deal with it. So, the Submerged Castle is one of many dungeons in Pikmin 2, and is the one thing about that game that most people will bring up immediately in discussion, and it's also the one thing I didn't bring up in my Pikmin 2 video because I felt it warranted its own explanation. The Submerged Castle is one of my favorite gaming moments. Undoubtedly, I think, my favorite level in any game. The thing about it though is that it could only possibly work within the context of the rest of the game, and it couldn't be repeated or built into or upon throughout the game. It had to only happen once. That's the only way. It worked because it was the only dungeon to really test a mechanic in the game that isn't the sort of thing you'd even think about being testable or challengeable. It was something that you just took as a given, like the fact that you have to press buttons to play a game, you have to put a board game back in the box when you're done, you have to use your hands to move pieces, really basic stuff like that. In Pikmin, you go around solving puzzles and killing monsters and collecting treasure, but also, you and your Pikmin have to have physical locations, right? I mean, yeah, that's just a basic fundamental rule of reality. It's not really a tool, it's not really a system or a mechanic, it's just a truth. This is what the Submerged Castle tests you on. Disclosure, this video will contain footage of 2 playthroughs I did of the Submerged Castle, and this will be important later, especially since dungeon content is procedurally generated. Visually though, you'll notice one playthrough is much brighter than the other. See, dungeons in Pikmin 2 were meant to be dark and dank and spooky, so to get this across, they made it so that you could only see fully in an area within a small radius around you. Problem: one of the later dungeons, as a reward for completing it, gave you a special light bulb item, which would, from that point on, fully light all dungeons for the rest of the game and couldn't be turned off. A very useful tool, especially for the Submerged Castle, which is why, after playing it with the lights on, I later went back and played it again, starting from an older save file so that I could do it again with the lights off. So my lights on playthrough was 100%ed and took about 1 hour and 14 minutes, while my second run wasn't 100%ed, partially because I didn't care and also because I lost a lot of Pikmin, and it took about 43 minutes. I should mention, the majority of both of these sessions was spent in the second sublevel of the dungeon, which teaches the player something very valuable about the very unique nature of this particular dungeon, but we'll get there. The way I'd like to tackle this is sublevel by sublevel, and go over the key challenges each one gives while comparing both playthroughs I did. So, without further ado, let's enter the Submerged Castle. Except hold up and back up. See, the Submerged Castle challenge actually begins before entering it. Something I mentioned about Pikmin 2 was that while treasures around the overworld required puzzle solving to get to sometimes, so did entrances to dungeons. The entrance to the Submerged Castle isn't as much tricky as it is confusing. In the overworld containing the entrance to the Submerged Castle, titled the Perplexing Pool, water is the main hazard in the area. Not to worry, if you've got blue Pikmin, they can enter bodies of water without issue. One of the first dungeons a player is likely to tackle in this overworld is called the Shower Room, and areas surrounding its entrance are submerged. Approaching the cave, though, to get details on it presents the player with a list of hazards inside, including fire, electricity, and poison, meaning multiple Pikmin types that can't get to the entrance of this dungeon in the overworld are going to be needed within it. A knowledgeable player might assume that color conversion flowers might be provided inside, but one with a keen eye will discover a way to build a safe and dry path for non-aquatic Pikmin to get there. Aha! It was a puzzle all along. In fact, not only was it just a puzzle all along, but I got the whole sequence of this wrong. Actually, you needed to solve the puzzle before you could even access the thing. Actually, not that I'm recording this audio or anything. You know, I clearly did this for the delivery of it to make it sound interesting, but basically, actually what happens is that you need to build that path to get to the entrance of the cave and then break down an electrical barrier, and then you get to the cave, and as you unplug the cave, it makes all the land dry because all the water gets sucked down into the shower hole, and that's how it works. Okay, yeah. So, much later, when that same player discovers the entrance to the Submerged Castle, cleverly obstructed from access until the end of their exploration in this overworld, noticing that it also is totally covered in water and also asks for multiple types of Pikmin, the player would assume there to be another way in, a bridge to build, or a drain to unplug that would make a safe passage for the other Pikmin needed. However, as hard as they may look, such a path would never be found. Simply, it doesn't exist. The Submerged Castle challenges you in a unique way that is never duplicated for the rest of the game before you even enter it. It's the only dungeon that lists hazards that you can't bring all immune Pikmin into. Once you realize that you can only bring in blue ones because the door is underwater, your curiosity is stung. What challenge will this dungeon hold? Is it just gonna force you to make do without a full tool set? Is it actually a lie? Is there going to be a way inside the cave to grow new Pikmin of different types? All sorts of questions bounce around your head as you travel with your maximum 100 blue Pikmin from your landing zone all the way to the furthest dungeon entrance in the game, that of the Submerged Castle, all the while trying not to lose any dudes along the way because you know now that once you enter, this is all you'll have. Out here, there's no difficulty, no real time limit, no challenge, but down there, resources are static, loss is permanent. The name of the game is Decay, and your goal is to let it happen as slowly as possible so that you have enough health equals strength equals Pikmin to defeat the final boss. Or at least, this is what every dungeon in the game so far has taught you. Dungeons are all the same. You enter, beat a few dudes, sustain as few losses as possible and collect treasure, then move on. Repeat with less and less dudes until, whoop, final floor, it's a big boss fight with whatever stranglers you've got left to claim your prize. This is not how the Submerged Castle works. As if the inability to enter properly prepared wasn't enough, the game subverts your expectation even further mere minutes after going in. Submerged Castle, Sublevel 1. As the game is throwing you in, it becomes clear that the warning about the hazards wasn't a joke. As soon as you're given the reins, you hear the crackling of fire, both set obstacles and enemies. Most notably, a big fire asshole. Almost as densely packed as the obstacles are dessert-type treasures to collect. Knowing, though, that the vulnerable Pikmin will carry items along the shortest path from the start to destination unless physically halted, you know right away that you'll need to clear a path for them, patiently disarming all fire spouts and enemies. The maze-like structure of the environment makes it a bit hard to make it around without waking enemies you're not ready to handle, but accidentally getting one to chase you might allow you to learn that fire enemies lose their protective fire coating and become vulnerable to blue Pikmin when they're standing in puddles of water like the many in this area. Still, the fire enemy is tough, the blue Pikmin aren't as strong as the regular red ones, and the edges of the walls encasing you make it hard to get behind them, so if you're unlucky, you'll likely lose a lot of dudes during the fight. Already I was feeling like the dungeon was kicking my ass. I was down to 77 of my initial 100 Pikmin before it finally happened. here I still am on the first sublevel of this dungeon, and this is the Water Wraith. It's the final boss of the dungeon. It's the only boss in any dungeon that appears on every sublevel of its dungeon to harass and street spank you with its invincibility, mobility, and insta-kill ability. The way it works is that after about 5 minutes of blissful peace in any sublevel of the Submerged Castle, this dude will show up and tear shit apart. As the instant change in music suggests, him and his all-terrain rolling pins are no joke. If he so much as touches a Pikmin, they get steamrolled, they get flattened, instant death, no friction, nothing. He just plows through like it's nobody's business. There's something really clever to note about his speed. He's just slightly slower than the player characters and the flower Pikmin, but he can outrun underdeveloped Pikmin types that trail further behind you. Now, in case you don't know, when it comes to carrying items throughout the game and dungeons, you can actually set twice as many Pikmin to carry one as required. That means an item with a weight of 10 can be carried by 20 guys if you want, and double their carrying speed. Even at double time though, the Water Wraith is faster. The Submerged Castle's first sublevel's maze layout seems to do two things. One, it makes it take longer to off enemies and traps than it would if it weren't a maze, which kind of sets you up to encounter the Wraith. And two, it gives you a good understanding of how fast you and your opponent can move. Watching him turn on a dime and drift around corners while your Pikmin struggle to carry cookies and donuts back to base prepares you for what's ahead. It lets you know who would win every possible matchup of a race, but gives you enough obstacles to observe this behavior safely outside of its reach, hopefully. And this is where it shows you what this dungeon's challenge is all about, the placement of yourself and your Pikmin. So far, every dungeon has been a set of randomly generated areas populated by many idle or patrolling enemies that have predictive behavior. You, the player, were the source of chaos in the system. You would be the one to go around and eliminate creatures, move items, solve puzzles. Enemies would not come after you lest provoked. You, so far, have been the instigator of every conflict in the game. Your proximity to enemies, the trigger. Often, what you do is store away Pikmin with one captain somewhere safe, kind of like a temporary bank, and then take a smaller group out on expeditions to clear out the area and make it safe. I mean, no reason to rush things. There's no time limit in dungeons, right? You can put and leave your Pikmin wherever you want and they're safe forever. You can set them to carry something and then you can leave and do something else, knowing that they'll make it back to base safely. You've never had to monitor the exact locations and speed of all Pikmin and captains in the map because you had zones of safety. What the Water Wraith does for the first time in the game is add chaos that isn't controlled by you. It eliminates safety, it traverses the map randomly until spotting prey and then makes relentless chase until they either get crushed or escape its attention. In the first sublevel, a player's first reaction to the Wraith will probably be to combine all Pikmin and captains together in a single mass in order to make it easier to manage. What they should learn from that though, is that now, when the Wraith detects them, it puts the whole crew in danger. This lesson should plant a seed in the player's head that, like a Pikmin, will develop and grow as they progress further through the challenges. The player might also try to attack it if they're stupid and didn't read the prompt, unlike me because I'm smart and didn't attack it, so I have no footage to show you of what it looks like when you attack it, which is smart. See, I lack this footage because I am smart. I am not stupid. I didn't forget to capture footage of a really important thing that showed off that the invincible interdimensional water demon is in fact invincible. I'm like Nicolas Cage over here. I've got nothing to say and I'm saying it. In my Lights On playthrough, I first encountered the Wraith here because I was taking it slow and forgot how the dungeon worked, having only played it last something like 6 years ago. In my Lights Off playthrough, I hauled ass through Sublevel 1, missing some treasures because I was scared shitless of the Wraith, especially in the dark, which we'll touch on in a minute. Sublevel 2 is really interesting in that the layout always seems to be the same across playthroughs. What changes instead is the types and position of enemies. Knowing now that their stalker will drop in if they spend too much time, the player doesn't dilly-dally here. The first most important thing to find is the exit, so that a quick escape can be planned, which the player will discover in a small room immediately next to where they started. At some point, the player will also learn about Bulbmin for the first time, parasitic Pikmin that infect monsters and allow you to control them. For the first time in the game, a dungeon introduces a way to restore your strength, but with a catch. To get them under your control, you need to kill their leader, but each leader parasite can have up to 10 children following it, so as long as you don't lose 10 in the fight or don't kill too many children, you'll have a net growth. These special Pikmin are only usable within dungeons, but are immune to all elements: fire, water, electricity, and poison. But with all that utility, of course, they can only be acquired in the weakest leaf form. Using a nectar can boost them up to a flower, but for a while you'll be carrying them around pretty weak. Either way, getting these guys to join you gives you hope that you can make it further and that a few losses on each level aren't so bad. Eventually, the player opens the other gate, sealing off their starting room, which leads down into a long, straight path. A large space with a ramped floor and a cracked pipe on the wall full of unthreatening spiders is what greets them. In a corner is a small hole that, when entered, reveals a hidden passageway too tight for anything but you or your Pikmin to enter. But of course, there's a catch. The end of the pipe drops you off from an elevated hole, meaning one side is a two-way entry while the other allows you to exit but not return. Luckily, it drops you off on a small elevated platform with a treasure, safe so long as you remain there. But it's clear that the path you'll need to drop down onto to carry this pastry back to base leaves you totally vulnerable, and going back the way you came once you fall down is impossible. These are one-way drop-offs. Unlike any other dungeon, the knowledge that you won't just be operating but will be chased throughout the layout of the floor makes you hyper alert and observant. In my lights on playthrough, since I had already first encountered the Wraith on the sublevel prior, his introduction was skipped. Instead, the sound of him dropping in was what I got to signal his entrance. At this point I was down at the end of the path and very vulnerable, so I moved up to the large open space to see if he was there, but he wasn't. Clearly he must have spawned in one of the rooms near the beginning of the floor. On my second playthrough, the dark one, in which I was doing much better and managed to keep 100 Pikmin, I held this knowledge about where he would spawn and assumed it to hold true once again. This was a mistake. It turns out the Wraith can spawn in randomly as well, and just my luck, spawned in right on top of me. There was no escape. In an instant I went from a perfect 100 to less than 30 Pikmin left. A devastating loss. I'd now have to clutch on to these few survivors until the end. They'd have to be my fighters, my movers, my demolition crew, my everything. Now, here's where playing with the lights on really makes a difference. One of the scariest things about the Wraith is that on top of him moving really fast, when he's free roaming, he also moves unpredictably. With the whole floor lit, it's really easy to just watch him, keep tabs on his exact position all the way across the map, and only come out when it's completely safe. In the dark, though, you have really low visibility. You'll see the monster run off into the shadows beyond your range of view, and then you'll just have to take a leap of faith and run out and continue moving whatever item you're trying to get up a ramp. All the while keeping an eye out to catch him straight run out of the darkness and right at you, giving you almost no time to drop your item and run away to safety. This is what this sublevel gets really well in the dark. In any other scenario, this would be a cakewalk. Literally, you just walk the cake up the path and back to your storage ship. Simple as that. But here, the reason the path is so long is so that carrying the items will take a while, providing the creature many chances to sneak up on you from the shadows and halt your progress. The straight, long path is a trap. One side is a dead end, the other is a vast open space with spiders that will try to hijack your items if you get too close. All the while, a monster riding Mr. Crab's first dime might come out of nowhere and try to plow your whole crew. But with the lights on, a lot of the tension is removed. The mystery of the exact location of the hunter isn't obfuscated. It's easy to tell at every moment if you're safe or not. It's a very useful tool, I won't lie, but it kinda ruins the experience, I think. A lights-off run of the dungeon is truly hard and terrifying. Not the sort of thing I've heard of anyone ever completing on their first go. Even though, at the end of the day, it's still just a straight path. If he disappears down one end, you know that's the end he's gonna reappear from, if he comes back to kill you. Kind of reminds me of that, what's that game with the kid with the little raincoat or whatever that is? It kind of looks like an origami or I don't freaking know. I haven't played it, but it kind of reminds me of what I've heard people say about that game, the sort of horror, yeah. The genius of this level carries on into its finale. See, once you've gotten all those treasures from the end of the path all the way back to base, you now need to escape through the entrance to the next sublevel. While you're carrying items on one side of the level, you kind of want the enemy to be off-screen on the other side and out of the way if you're carrying Pikmin. But now, to make a run for the exit, you need to swap sides and rooms with the Wraith without getting killed, which might introduce you to the concept of luring him out. Prep for what you could assume you're going to be doing in the next few sublevels, really going for that feeling of being a rat, an intruder trapped in an alien environment, trying to make it out without being spotted by random patrol. Sublevel 3 is lots of fun. Between my playthroughs, the layout of this area was completely different, but the idea was the same, similar to that of the first sublevel actually, to traverse and clear out paths in a maze for your Pikmin to eventually carry items through, the difference being that most of the hazards are electric this time, and that there are a few strong walls to demolish, and that there are a few enemies that remove Pikmin flowers. Starting the level, you can track down another group of Bulbmin to add to your crew, which you'd need since they're resistant to electricity. With few left though, taking out traps and enemies becomes more time consuming, and based on how much larger this is than the previous maze level and how fewer dudes you've got, you're basically guaranteed to spend enough time to trigger the Wraith to appear. Once he does, here's your chance to apply some advanced tactics. See, the last times, even if it spotted you, it was still possible to run away with a whole squad and then make it back to safety. But this time, it's much harder. The maze is more complex and harder to learn. It's easier to accidentally stumble into a dead end. The level includes a white Pikmin conversion flower, and if you use it, not all paths are always accessible to your white Pikmin. There's just too much complexity and danger to risk taking everyone together. So now it's time to take that new luring out technique to the next level. The ideal way to approach this floor is to split the captains up, have one manage the group of Pikmin and have the other act as a diversion for the Wraith. While one captain oversees the taking down of a wall, the other could lead the thing on a goose chase, or alternatively, since white Pikmin were so valuable, you could leave one captain protect them and have the other captain take everyone else, the ones capable of walking through water. That way, the two captains could be used to sort of juggle the Wraith, to share its attention between them and also give the player more of a view of the map by placing them at opposite ends of the floor. Managing two captains and using them to track and control the Wraith's position is critical to collecting all of the treasure on this floor. A lack of attention sure puts your Pikmin in a dangerous position, especially for the final escape to the next exit point, which is completely open to the Wraith's attack if you don't lead it away. Sublevel 4 introduces and tests you on one final skill that was present but not as important in the previous areas, hiding in pipes. In Sublevel 2, the long pipe stretching across a quarter of the room was used both as a hiding spot and a way to protect yourself and a shortcut, so as long as you stayed in the hole, you were safe. In this sublevel, multiple types of cover exist. There's the obvious small broken sections of piping that can be entered and aren't accessible by the Wraith, but there are also much larger passages with arches over them that block entry to the monster. This level gives you what's probably fair to call an overabundance of cover and protection from the Wraith, causing you to let your guard down. But see, the main opponent on this floor isn't actually the Wraith, it's explosives. Whether falling from the sky or carried by walking spiders that chase you, these bomb rocks can put a serious dent in your plans. And hiding the bombs in areas of safety from the Wraith is genius. I feel like the idea was to have you get trapped between the explosives and the Wraith, but if you're clever, you can clear out most of the bombs before the Wraith ever even appears, turning the remainder of your play into you scurrying from point of cover to point of cover with small groups of Pikmin while the Wraith's back is turned, like some kind of centipede or something, trying to sneak batteries and deviled ham past an angry creature. You could try using the luring techniques, but it's already been tested. Patience works here really well. Now in my lights on playthrough, this went pretty fine. I was able to get through the dungeon pretty easily and evade the bombs and Wraith. On my lights off one though, I had it a bit too easy. In fact, after hearing the Wraith enter, I never saw it. Turned out it was the fault of the random dungeon generation. The Wraith had randomly spawned in a room containing the exit to the final floor. However, the room was blocked off by an archway, meaning the Wraith couldn't leave it. I could explore as much as I wanted without having to worry about the monster because it spawned into a trap, which kinda sucked. Both the ideas to have all dungeon content procedurally controlled and to have a monster follow you throughout the cave are cool ones, but in implementation I can see how a case like this may have been overlooked. it sucks. The game functions otherwise perfectly well in other places, but this was a bit of a disappointment. Though it did mean that the one room he was protecting, the room with the exit, was hard to access. It made the beeline to the hole a little stressful and tight. And finally, the end of the road, the final floor of the dungeon, Sublevel 5, the boss room. Here, after all this time being chased and annihilated and run over by this dude, the game finally lets you take a swing at him. On this floor, they give you the chance to convert some Pikmin to purple ones, making it pretty clear that they're going to be the key to unlocking the puzzle that is the Water Wraith's invincibility, and also allowing you to turn some Bulbmin into types you can actually return to the overworld with. It's cool. Throwing these dudes makes a heavy slam on the ground, a slam that scares the monster and makes him vulnerable to regular attacks. He's still got his insta-kill rolling pins, so you're not out of the woods yet, but once you break them, he's an easy peaser, and he gives you one of the most useful power-ups in the game, a whistle that plucks Pikmin. Finally, you can leave with whatever few Pikmin you have left, and tally up your treasure score for the dungeon. And that's it. That's the Submerged Castle. Nothing quite like it ever happens again in the game, and for good reason. The whole concept of the dungeon only works because in a million years it would never be your expectation, but after having been sprung on you, and now it could be. Doing anything like it, a stalking type dungeon, it wouldn't work because now you're familiar with the concept. The Submerged Castle needed to have self-contained challenges, leave nothing to be desired. It had to test you on something that no other part of the game would, managing the positions of your Pikmin under the pressure of instant death. It had to introduce concepts to you, make you overcome a challenge related to them, and then toss them out for the next. It had to be a unit. It wasn't prep for some other part of the game, just as no other part of the game was prep for it. Every other cave in the game you could cheese by banking your guys in one central location and exploring slowly, but not this one. It's a really good dungeon, it's a great idea, it's executed almost flawlessly, it's also downright terrifying, intense. Holy crap, it turns this thing into a horror game. Watching this thing emerge from darkness and charge at you while your guard is down is one of the most stressful and frightening things ever, but looking into the shadow and not seeing him is just as bad. I mean, what is it, like the worst nightmares you ever have are always about someone chasing you. That's what this level is about. It's about being chased, it's about being defenseless and chased, which is a really good combination if you want to scare the shit out of people, and a bad one if you know, you're not ready to poop. Pikmin 2 is a sort of game that has so much content and so many different dungeons that it could afford to pull out one totally wacky one. Sure, there are brutally hard dungeons that make you rematch every boss in the game and ones that abuse you with poisonous traps, but there's only one where the final boss chases you for the entire playthrough. Only one where you might have to call your guys back from carrying an item because they're about to get slammed. Only one where you have to send a captain out to lure a creature away from your points of interest. There's only one Submerged Castle. At least, you know, until Pikmin 3 comes along and then rips off the whole concept for its final boss, making its ending just a poopy copy of the best part of Pikmin 2. But hey, I guess you know why I wanted to spend a little bit more time on this dungeon now, eh? Yeah. Thanks for watching. See you later. Bye. Hello and welcome to the end screen. Look at this. Can you even call it an end screen if I'm not even on the screen? What's the point anymore? I don't even. Well, whatever. I like doing these. The end screens are back by popular demand. I think that's the one funny joke I ever heard Ellen DeGeneres say. One time there's this feature on her show that she wanted to cut out, or people wanted to cut out, and then she brought it back and she said it's back by popular demand because I'm popular and I demand it. So I think that's like the funniest joke Ellen has ever said, and I think I've ripped it off a few times. So yeah, end screens are only here because well, I'm not popular, but they are back by demand. Whose demand? Not yours. My demand. Bye. See you later. So quick update. Actually, you know what? Two quick updates while I'm on the topic of end screens. Something you may have noticed is that I've been going back through a lot of my older videos, some of the recent videos I've put out this year because they're easy to do, and I've been adding captions to them. See, YouTube has this really useful tool where if you have a whole script, which, you know, a lot of people in the sort of business I do, you know, you have your essay, you can just kind of upload it and YouTube will match it up to the video and add closed captions to it. I've been doing this for a lot of videos. Not all of them are perfect because sometimes I do go off script, and especially around here where the end screen goes, because the end screen is not scripted. YouTube just kind of shits itself and doesn't know what to put here, and it like tries to take lines from the script and apply them to the end screen, which just breaks the whole layout. I fixed most of them. I've applied the ones that I can fix in a reasonable amount of time, but I know at least in this script, just from having read it over, I noticed a lot of issues that I can't fix. So this one might have some issues, but I've also made them, what is it, community sourced or whatever, so anybody can just like go in and fix issues. So I don't know, but fact of the matter, main point is that I'm going to be doing this for future videos, be putting these up and reviewing, like, you know, doing a quick scrub through to make sure all the timings are good, or at least the ones I see are good. It's kind of hard when a video is really long. Whoa, sorry, my chair just creaked. But yeah, it's kind of hard when a video is really long, because the caption reviewer, I don't know what to call this, but it's like if you zoom out, it just doesn't show you all the captions. It's kind of dumb, but anyways, all this to say is that captions are slowly being rolled out to my new, so they're not slowly being rolled out, sorry, they're rather going to be applied to all my new videos. That's basically it. Second quick update, I am moving. I'm actually in between, wait, what is it? It's April 2nd, the day I'm recording this audio, and as of yesterday, I currently own 2 apartments. I own the apartment I'm currently in and the one I'm moving to, so I have like a whole month to move very slowly. It's kind of a pain, except there are certain deadlines that I have. For example, there's a day where my internet gets switched from this place to the other place, so the goal is to kind of stay here until then, but a lot of stuff is moved. So my TV is moved, all my consoles are moved. I made the mistake of packing all my games. I wanted to play freaking Breath of the Wild last night, and then I realized I packed it, so all I have is my Switch with Splatoon in it, but I don't have a TV, so I have to play it like on the little screen, which kind of sucks because I play with gyro. So I have made some mistakes, my friends. Splatoon's not the sort of game you can play in bed. Zelda is, but not this. So yeah, I didn't actually want to make the Submerged Castle video first. I came up with 2 different ideas for 2 different videos. One's a little bit more complicated, one is a lot more fun. It's kind of a hot take. I'll spoil it for you. I'll spoil it for you. You will not understand what it's about, but it's a video about how and why Metal Gear Solid 2 is my favorite Metal Gear Solid game. Emphasis on the word game. Maybe if you've played it, you probably know, at least if you have the, what is it, the subsistence version or whatever. Anyways, kind of spoiled it right there, but I wanted to really dive into that because I'm a big ol', in the sense that I am large, I'm fat, very fat, but also, well, not that, I'm actually not that bad. I'm surprisingly fast also. I can run really fast for like as large as I am. It always surprises people when I'm like running for a bus. Anyways, why am I talking about this? But yes, I'm also a very large Metal Gear Solid fan, and of all the games I've played, I had the best experience in a very specific part of 2, but we'll get there in that video. So I wanted to do that first, but then I realized that all my consoles and my TV were packed, so I actually could not record gameplay for it. And then I figured I have the Pikmin 2 footage, I don't need to re-record it, I have the footage of the Submerged Castle, I can just, you know, make this video quickly while I'm in between places, and hopefully this will go pretty well. So yeah, really, if it weren't for the fact that I'm moving, this video wouldn't have been out. I would have made a video about Metal Gear Solid 2, and then I would have come back to this later, because I'm a freaking jerkwad. But without further ado, the people I need to thank for their patronage to this great project that we call, well, that I've called LambHoot for one reason or another, for better or for worse. For better or for worse. Special thanks to, and I gotta mention, I noticed that some names from last time are missing and some names are still there, but I printed the same report, so I don't know if people left or if they changed their names. And I noticed new people too that I wasn't notified about. So I almost like feel guilty, like I feel like maybe I didn't print out the right report last time and get all the names, but I reviewed it, I did, like I did get the right report, so I don't know exactly how this works. But yeah, without further ado, and in for some reason a different order now, which makes me feel like people change their names. I don't know, the freaking guys changing your names, Christ. But yeah, all of y'all, basically all y'all's names are the Disgruntled Mushroom, the Vinjock, good guy. He talked about, we had a little discussion about the challenge mode in Pikmin 2, which I thought about talking about in this video, except I don't have footage of it because my TV and my consoles are gone. So instead, what I might do is, what I think I would like to do is talk about it at the end of a video about Pikmin 3 that I will eventually do, because Pikmin 3 killed its challenge mode. It just flopped like a fish, if you know what I'm saying. The Daily Sam K, Christ, this name is gonna haunt me for the rest of my YouTube career. Grant Whalen, oh baby, yeah. Draz Games, Ari, Zach Frazier, little drummer boy, Hat Wearing Gamer, little hat wearing boy, Tito's, Nathan Walker, The Cosmic Crown, Final Blue Man, he's the last one, guaranteed, Austin 5, Wally Sullivan, and, oh, this is a creative one, Worm Food Feud. That's nice. And speaking of things that are nice, you know, it'd be nice is if I just turned off this recording. See you guys later. Bye.